Our next speaker is Hsieh. Cheng is the Chief Data Officer at Etsy, where he manages Etsy's global data organization, including engineering, data science, and machine learning. Cheng was previously the head of Alexa voice recognition. He specializes in search engine, recommendation systems, and machine learning technology. He joins us today to provide us with a framework for assessing a company's artificial intelligence and machine learning maturity. Cheng, welcome, and please take it away.
I'm the Chief Data Officer at Etsy. I'm very glad today to be here to talk to you all about how could one person assess a company's AI machine learning maturity of another company's. I'm going to present you a 5-level framework. In this 5-level framework, it will serve as a guide to help you to understand if you are a scientist, what kind of problem you are going to solve when you join a company. In the meantime, if you are an executive, I'm going to talk to you how can you using the same framework, this 5-level framework, to measure the quality of a company you are thinking about acquire, or to tell you what kind of scientists you should hire. So without further ado, let's jump to this 5 framework. In this 5-level framework, I roughly describe the spectrum of AI machine learning into 5 stages. A lot of time when you are trying to build an AI machine learning capability, you think about, oh, I want to do AI, or I don't want to do any AI. But the reality is that the AI machine learning is more like a progress, a spectrum, instead of like an on and an off. And I kind of describe these 5 stages using 5 different roles, from conductor, practitioner, craftsman, adventurist, to all the way to a pioneer. And I'm going to talk to you about each stage. And at the end, I'm going to tell you how can you quickly understand the stage of a company using 3 simple questions when you are interview with a company or when you are trying to talk and evaluate another companies. So let's jump to the level 1, conductor stage. At the conduct stage, products are powered by AI machine learning service offered by another vendors. One could see a conductor in a big orchestra. If you see each individual playing in an orchestra as a service, then machine learning is one specialist in your team. How so? Let's start with examples. If you are going to build a product and you need an AI machine learning capability, like say machine translations, you want to convert from English to Japanese. And certainly this is a solution. You can find many vendors that offer such kind of solution online. In this example, I just picked Microsoft translators. By using this translation service, your product will now be able to automatically support multiple different languages. And this kind of machine learning capabilities is exactly like your conductors. Because most of the time, if you are a scientist to join such a company, you have to know machine learning. You need to know the limitation of machine learning translation. You need to know the parameters you are going to set up when you're using this kind of service. Just like when you are an engineer, you need the library to sort a list of numbers. You are using a sorting function, which is written by someone else. But you have to know which kind of sorting function fits your need. Is that the memory intensive? Is that the CPU intensive? Is this distributed computable? You need to understand all these limitations and different choices. In machine learning, it's the same thing. You have to know machine learning to pick the right solution, to evaluate the different pros and cons of different solutions. So oftentimes, when you join a company at this stage as a data scientist, you are actually a hybrid of engineer and scientist. Your machine learning knowledge is very critical in this stage. But in the meantime, a lot of your time is working with engineer or sometimes to be an engineer to integrate these machine learning solutions. And that's what you expected if you are a data scientist. But how about if I'm an executive, when I talk to acquire company, what does that mean when I acquire a company with level 1 stage of machine learning maturities? That exactly the talent acquisition steps. So a lot of time when you are trying to acquire a company, the easy way of thinking about machine learning capability at this stage is that machine learning is coming from a third-party vendors. So their main competitive advantage is the engineering talents, a group of engineers who actually know machine learning and know how to pick the right machine learning solution and integrate this machine learning solution into a product. And that's what you acquire for. At this stage, if you acquire a company for AI machine learning, what you will actually get is a lot of engineering talents with machine learning background, which can be sometimes a very good choice if you want to quickly integrate these vendors into your ecosystems. They will tell you the different vendors, their pros and cons, and then provide you like a quick boost on your talent pools. And that is the stage 1. So now let's move to level 2, practitioner. Practitioner stage products are powered by prevalent AI machine learning solution. Often you can find a similar solution on a book, or you can get this kind of solution on some training materials you can find in an online course. And what do you mean by prevalent AI machine learning solution? What I'm trying to refer is that these solutions are pretty common. They're using the same algorithm to solve different problems. And I'm going to first talk to one problem that we have to solve at Etsy to help you understand how practitioners play such a role in a lot of product. At Etsy, a lot of items are one of the kind. They are handmade. Once they sold, it's gone. So for items that only exist once in the whole world, you cannot show a review because apparently once it gets bought, then it is gone. So the best alternative is to find a review for similar items, like say from the same seller. They look the same or similar to this item, but not exactly identicals. So how can you find reviews that is similar to the item, which is one of the kind? And apparently, this is a machine learning problem that to find a similar item, and then sort the review based on the similarity between the item you are going to sell on your website and the previous review for an item that is sold in the past. So in order to find such kind of similar reviews, you have to build a machine learning model to compare the similarity between two items. And apparently, there are a lot of things you can do. You can look at the picture, you can read the language, you can even analyze whether they come from the same producers. And that is what machine learning can help us to do, is to read a tons of transaction history and identify items that are sold and identify the most likely review which is relevant to the new item, which is one of the kind. And how to do such kind of problem, if you Google, you will find that there are many popular libraries like this Valpo Webet, and there are scikit-learn. There are tons of different libraries that the people can find online. And all these libraries, they produce the easy to access like models or functions, allowing scientists to input data and build projections on top of these data you produce. At this stage, we often partner with companies like Scale AI, and because they can help us to give the labels, like whether two items are similar, such that we can feed this kind of data into our machine learning pipeline and build a projection service. And unlike the stage 1, which is machine learning translation, is a popular practice, you can find a lot of vendors. The things I just described to you, like finding a most relevant reviews through the history, is kind of unique to Etsy. And apparently many companies also have such kind of unique problem they have to solve. And that is usually the stage 2 means is that you need to work out a solution from a library or a solution you can find on the textbook, but you have to be creative and figure out a way how to translate your problem into a solution. If you are a scientist joining such a company, you can assume that you're actually using a lot of machine learning library and use them to solve a business problems. In my examples, if you are a scientist, you need to first be creative, understand the problem is that every item only exists once. And your job is using natural language processing, image understanding, or all this library you can find online and build a solution to predict what is the most relevant reviews to show. And this is your job if you join the companies. So a lot of time, you are not going to like stage one to connect all the machine learning service. You will be responsible for identifying which data you are going to use to build a model. You need to work with company to get the label data in this example, like to tell machine learning which two review are relevant and why. And then eventually you build a machine learning on top of that. So that will be your day-to-day job look like. But how about if you are executive? If you acquire companies or you decide to work with a company that provides a level 2 stage of maturities, what you will often see is that that company will have a lot of, I call AI machine learning generalists. And when I say generalist, it means they are actually expert, but they are to some extent understand many, many machine learning solutions. They under supervised learning, unsupervised learning. They understand different kind of machine learning problem like clustering, classification. They even can tell you the difference between, what is a tree model? What is the linear models? And their broadness understanding about machine learning will be able to work with your engineer and product managers and understand and translate the problem into a solutions, and then build up a pipeline to generate these kind of solution in productions. And that is the person you are going to acquire. Is a lot of people who are, I often call them, they are applied scientists. They have a strong understanding of broad spectrum of different machine learning, and they have patience to help the company to build a solution that are based on this data, and then help you to deliver value to your customers. Now we are going to talk about level 3 craftsman. At craftsman stage, products are powered by customized AI machine learning solution, which are often from latest papers or conference. So what is level 3 and why it's very different from level 2? If you think about level 2, it's something you can go to IKEA and buy the furnitures. At level 3, what you want is talk to some specialist and customize a solution to fit your unique need, and you want them to be the best you could find. And often for a company like Etsy, we want our solution to be not just unique, but also best in the class. And that's why level 3 is very critical for our success. So what does level 3 means? Let me give you an example like how we get ideas and also how this solution was built. A lot of time, the breakthrough won't exist on a textbook. This solution usually published on a conference, or they are written in papers that you can download from internet, or there will be a lot of open source solution that implement these papers. Say we want to detect whether a review is positive or negative. Well, you certainly can build a level 2 stage solutions. You can find some public library and solve that. But still can imagine that the human language is very difficult to understand. And in order to really do and understand the sentiment of a review, there are a lot of advanced neural network solution, or today people call it deep learning, you can use to make a much better solution, which can understand the unique need, because a language written on e-commerce website like Etsy will be very different from the language that you can find on a newspaper website. So in these examples, the solution, the breakthrough coming from the academic society is actually a cornerstone of many solutions that you can find online. If you are a scientist joining these companies, what you actually do is that you actually read a lot of papers. You understand what is the latest state-of-the-art solutions, and then using this technology breakthrough to build a unique experience for customers. Unlike level 2, which is spending a lot of time understand the problem, formulate the problem in machine learning, and then solve that with a popular library you can download online. At level 3, you have to figure out a way to convert a theory into a productionized solutions. So if you are a scientist joining a level 3 company, you should expect that you have to read a lot of papers. And you should expect that you are going to build a lot of customized solution that is unique to the company. And often they are even based on the latest technology breakthrough, like a lot of deep learning solution these days. So what does this mean for executive? Unlike level 2, when you acquire a company, you usually acquire a lot of generalists. At the level 3, when you acquire a company, you often acquire for their technology. For example, if your company needs to hire a lot of people who understand fraud detections, then you should understand that the technology using to solve fraud and detect fraud is very different from image understanding. These are A and B, they are totally different. Of course, you can find a generalist which can, find popular solution to solve both problems easily. But those problems also have their own unique perspective. The people need to really understand the domain and also understand the breakthrough in that domain to build a good solution in level 3. Of course, one could argue level 2 and level 3 is generalist to specialist. And what I usually tell my peers and tell other CDO is that when I acquire for a level 3 company, I always pay attention to the technology they have. Do they really have something that is very unique? They can bring a value that you cannot easily produce by a general solutions. And that's why often when you want to acquire the level 3 company, you pay attention to the domain they have specialties. So now we are going to talk about level 4, adventurist. At this stage, your company should be the first mover with experience that powered by AI machine learning. Solutions at this level usually are unique to your business. And oftentimes they are actually your secret source. It could be your trade secrets, or if you decide to disclose that, it's become a pattern. So if you go to USPTO patent search, you can find that the many companies these days are share their innovations first by patent and then by papers. It is very important to protect your IP at this stage of the innovation because oftentimes you are the first person to come up with a solution that hadn't been solved before. And this becomes a very strong competitive advantage for technology companies. Because in a world like that, very often that when you come with a solution, someone is working on similar problems. And if you don't patent your solutions and someone patent it first, in the future, there will be a legal liability when you try to build a solution on top of your innovations. So at this stage, I often call it more like a patent first, paper next, and product the last. And of course, this means that you are a scientist in such a company, you will produce solution that is very unique and it's very innovative. And since you will even be protected and sign NDA, you cannot talk about your work. So if you are a data scientist joining such a company in level 4, expect the solution you are going to build is a company confidential that you cannot share with your family and friends because they become a trade secrets of many companies at this stage. So what if you are an executive? What does it mean to acquire a company at level 4? First, like level 4 doesn't mean they are a very big company. They could be a spin-off from a school lab, a professor and a few students who kind of create a company that publish a lot of patents and papers. Even they don't have a concrete product, but if you find that they have a solution that really important to your future product, then you can acquire a level 4 company for the intellectual properties. You acquire these kind of IPs to protect your company and also prevent other competitors from entering the space. And that's the level 4 stage of the AI machine learning. That doesn't mean that the size of your team is biggest, but it does mean that the focus is different. At this stage, whether something is immediately become a product is less critical than the originality and innovation of the solutions. We are talking about the last stage, level 5, pioneer stage. At this stage, your company is pushing the boundary of innovation to the next levels. And you are often recognized as the leaders in a space which you choose to become the best in the business. So what does pioneers means? If you take a look about the recent machine learning conference, like ICML, one of the best conference, you will see many researchers or chairs are actually from industry. And how so? Because oftentimes the industry have tons of data and unique problem they have to solve. And at this stage of the companies, what they are trying to do is to make sure that they put enough resource to make sure that whenever there's a breakthrough, they will be the first mover at this stage. Of course, patent is still important at this stage, but that's not the whole core. The goal is to make sure that the company was perceived as the leader and the best of the class among all the competitors. And you can see a lot of publication from industrial companies these days in all these academic conferences for the reasons. Oftentimes, people working in these locations or this office classify themselves as researchers or a research scientist. So if you are a scientist joining a level 5, like a group or level 5 companies, then you are mostly doing applied research. And remember that very few companies actually only do level 5. They actually have solutions from 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 5. And they usually create a lab, a research lab sometimes, or innovation lab, depending on how you call it. But if you are a scientist joining kind of this lab, you are actually doing very similar work, just like when you are a full-time professor. With one difference is that your research area is constrained by the field or domain company choose to compete with. And you are expected to publish papers, and your KPI is often how many papers you published and patents you published. And the most important thing is that how can you convert this innovation into a product? You are a consultant for other companies. You are a consultant for your groups. And this is very common, especially for companies that are chosen to be a technology leaders in the field. How about if you are executive? What does this mean to acquire level 5 companies? First, level 5 companies are often a group or a department inside big companies. And they could be sold separately, but most of the time, it's very hard to acquire such kind of level 5 companies. With one exception is that sometimes the university will have a spin-off with a professor who create a small company who focus on applying certain kind of research and build them as a startup. But suppose that you acquire an AI machine learning company at this stage, which you actually trying to acquire is not just the technology and the people. You acquire for their brand. There's a group of experts who join together and create a brand in the communities. When you acquire such a company, what you're trying to compete is to make sure that you're using your brand to either bring business or to recruit. And that's how executive should see if they are thinking about acquiring a level 5 company. And honestly, level 5 company is not that common. So usually this is not a popular scenario that you will be encountered during MMA discussions. Now you know the 5-stage framework. You know from 1, conductor, all the way to 5, pioneers. The most often question I got from my mentees and other peers is, I don't know how to tell. How can I tell whether a company is level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? There are two important things to remember here. The first thing you should remember is, if you're talking about stock, they're probably in one stage or in between 2 stages. But if you talk about big companies, depending on which team you join, it can be level 1 all the way to level 5. So how can you tell? I'm sharing you with 3 powerful questions you can use. Number 1, how do you interview your scientist? In your first introduction call with your hiring managers, ask these questions. If you are executive, you are trying to acquire a company, ask their leaders, how do you interview your scientist? Apparently, if they focus on mathematical skill, research skill, problem-solving skill, they are likely to be level 3 and above. If they focus more on engineering skills, they are likely to be level 1 to level 3. So the number one thing you can roughly gauge whether they are in the front or in the back is by asking how they interview their scientist. How many technical interviews? What question will get asked in technical interviews? And if you are a scientist, after you've done all your interview, you should roughly know which stage they are. Number 2, you can ask them, how do you measure your success in AI/ML? Again, if they say, we really want to build a competitive advantage, it's very important for us to come up with innovations and then patent these innovations. You got the keywords patents. You probably can guess they are level 4 and above. On the other hand, if they say your success is based on the product you build, and we really want to build something that is very unique to the industry, likely be level 3. So by asking how they measure their success, you can roughly guess which stage they are. And my favorite is the third one, because if number 1 and number 2 is more subjective and trying to guess where they are, the number 3 is very powerful, but often difficult to answer, is how are you going to define your KPIs? Apparently, if your KPI is number of papers you publish in a year, you should be expected that the role is at least the number level 4 or level 5. Because level 4 and level 5, innovation and share those innovation is very critical. On the other hand, if your solution is mostly business-related metrics like revenues, volumes, then likely it's level 2 or level 3. And if they say, oh, we don't have a KPIs, I just need someone who knows machine learning and come to help me to using machine learnings, it is possible they are level 1. They need someone to understand how machine learning solution can be used in their product. And so let's do a quick conclusion from level 1 to level 5. At the level 1, your job is trying to coordinate different solutions. At level 2, your job is to make sure you can scale solutions to productions. At level 3, your job is to make sure you build custom solutions. At level 4, you should make sure that your solution is one of the best, and you help the company to be the first mover to deliver a solution. And at level 5, you are a pioneer. Your job is to push the boundary of one domain. And that's what I want to use this 5-level framework to help you to assess the AI machine learning maturity of a company, or to be more precise about the team you are going to work for. So thank you so much. If you want to learn more about our current work on data science and machine learning, you can come to our website, dsml.etsy.com. I want to thank you all for joining the talk today. It has been a pleasure to share my learnings on this 5 stage, and looking forward to hear a question from you. Thank you.